Good morning. I'm Jon Lohr with the Sioux Falls Police Department. I'm a captain in the Administrative Services Division, and one of my primary tasks is overseeing the hiring and the recruiting for our department, and that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. So just last week, we introduced a group of 15 new recruit officers to the police department. They started their training last week. That continued into this week, and starting on Monday, they will go into their basic law enforcement academy here in Sioux Falls, where they will go through 13 weeks of basic skills training. One of the things about that is once we get to the point where we actually hire a group, it's always exciting, but the excitement and the jubilation doesn't last long because the work begins right away. And I think that's kind of what I want to talk about today is we already start to build our class for November. So currently our department sits at 280 police officers, sworn police officers, with an allocation for 288 officers. So that means we're going to be looking to hire 8 new officers for November. Some of the people that we're going to be looking for we're always looking for men and women that they have a vested interest in kind of what our mission statement says about partnering with the community to serve, protect, and promote quality of life. That's the type of person that we want to look for that will embody that vision. Right now, applications are open through SiouxFalls.org police recruiting. That website has a lot of detailed information that people can get the finer details of benefits and some of the other things that go with the job. And we encourage anybody that's interested or thinking about it to go there for those details. Some of the qualifications that we look for, there's higher education, there's military experience, prior law enforcement, but we also recognize that there's those people out there that are in advanced positions that show leadership, responsibility, and have maybe some prior supervisory experience as well. We're going to take that into account and look at that. Our hiring board will look at that on a one-on-one basis as well. So that really kind of opens some things up for people to think about joining our department. It's one thing that I want to mention that it is a rather lengthy process, even though it's going to come up quick. There's a lot of different steps to that. We have multiple interviews that they go through, a polygraph examination, a psychology examination, and we also do a full background investigation before they would get hired, which includes a criminal history, reference checks, and then just a total background to make sure they're the right fit for our department. Right now, the deadline to apply for our November class is September 15th. And again, we encourage people, if they're interested, to go to our recruiting page and find that. Some of the questions I always am asked are where are we sitting in terms of how other agencies are at. We actually feel real fortunate here in Sioux Falls. We're less than a 3% vacancy for officers right now. And that's one of the things that we do like to promote with prospective officers is the fact that when you join us, you're going to join an organization that already has some pretty solid staffing numbers, which means a lot of less forced overtime that a lot of different agencies across the nation see because, quite honestly, they have to staff their departments, which means less days off, less ability to enjoy family life and things like that. A couple of the other things that we want to promote is our hiring incentive, which is a $5,000 hiring bonus for new officers. That's something that they will receive 1,000 of that in their first paycheck, and then upon successful completion of a 15-month probationary status, they will receive the remaining $4,000. And that's something that we do see nationally right now. There's a lot of agencies that are doing that, but we also want to make sure that people know about that. One of the things that makes us pretty unique for a city our size and an agency our size is we offer a lot of diversity in terms of what new officers can look forward to doing down the road. And that includes 20 specialty units for growth and some leadership opportunities, a lot of opportunities for training and different things that you can do within a career that maybe other careers don't provide you. Another thing that we're kind of excited about talking about is our wellness program. We recently hired a wellness specialist, and that person will oversee various areas of overall wellness for our department, and that's something that we're definitely taking seriously, and we want people to know about that. One of the other exciting things for anybody that would be hired in that November class is the fact that they would be our first class to actually be able to take in our new Public Safety Training Center, which is a $55 million facility that's nearing completion right now. It's a state-of-the-art facility that we believe in the region there's nothing that really competes with it, so we're excited to see that group of officers go through the training in that new facility. One of the other questions too that sometimes we're asked is everybody has kind of a different story as to what brings them into the profession. And it's hard to say what really, if there's one that it's overriding. We hear anything from that's really what they've wanted it to be since they were real young, to even we've had a recent recruit tell us that Sioux Falls was it for them because of the state has no income tax. And so we see a lot of different reasons, but we're always interested to hear about that from different people and what brings them here. So in closing, we're just looking for the next generation of officers who are motivated to make Sioux Falls and the police department a better place to be and a better place to work. And anybody, again, that's interested, we would encourage them to go to our recruiting page for those details. Do we have any questions?
You mentioned the wellness program. How much of that goes with mental health?
Yeah, that's one of the prongs that gets looked into. They'll work hand in hand with our peer support unit. So any of the officers that might be involved in a critical incident will have the ability to reach out to our peer support, and they can set them up with different types of counseling, therapy, whatever that would be. And sometimes it's just as simple as finding somebody to talk to about a bad situation. It really varies. All I can really talk about is kind of where we are now and where we've been to some extent. It's been since 2017 that we've actually been at a full staffing capacity, and even that wasn't long lasted. So it's pretty common that when you do hit that full capacity of officers, that you have to get ready for that next line or that next group of recruits to come through before you're going to hit that again. So, but in terms of retention, we feel like we do well in that area.
Is there a national average for vacancies that 3% better than some of the counterparts?
Yeah, and sometimes we hear about the ones that are really on the other side of it, and we'll hear some of them up to 40% in some areas. So it just depends on what's going on in their cities, of course, and that's one of the great reasons why we promote Sioux Falls being such a great place to work and live.
What's the starting salary for a police officer now?
Yeah, it's over $61,000, and that as a starting rate, that would be about $29.50 an hour.
One of the things that's been talked about the past several years is increasing diversity to make up the police force. How would you describe that right now?
Yeah, we feel like we're in a good place in that area. Quite honestly, our last class was probably one of the most diverse classes that we've had. And I'm not saying that we can really attribute it to anything other than just the fact that Sioux Falls is really growing, and that's bringing a more diverse population into our city that desires to be police officers.
And just briefly, if people think if you have experience as a police officer, why do I need to go to class and something like that? If I graduated from somewhere, is there a brief way to say why they have to do this in November?
Yeah, so I think your question was if somebody has law enforcement experience, why would they have to do it again? Is that it?
Yeah.
The reason being is our department, of course, has unique policies and procedures that officers from different areas would have to become familiar with. So they would have to go through a portion of that training. It wouldn't be quite as long as a brand new police officer that's never had experience. But yeah, they still have to go through quite a bit of the training to acclimate themselves to what they're going to do for our department. Yeah, the deadline for applications is going to be in September, and that's on the 15th of September. And that's for the November class. Anything else? All right. Next up is Matt Nelson from City of Sioux Falls Parking.
Good morning. Matt Nelson, Public Parking Facilities Manager for the City of Sioux Falls. So just want to talk about a change that we're making in our downtown area. Starting this week, the parking department will begin installing 15-minute parking express zones in our downtown Sioux Falls area. Those zones, we're consistently looking for ways to continue to support our businesses in our downtown and to better utilize some of our current shared use or designated spaces to shared use spaces. We think we can utilize them better and provide better efficiency for our businesses and different people visiting our downtown. The recommendation to install these spaces actually came from working with our downtown Sioux Falls, with our Public Parking Advisory Board, and with many businesses in the downtown area. The 15-minute express zones, these zones will be a combination of what are currently commercial load zones. They are currently taxi zones. They're 20-minute carryout spaces, and some of them are meters that will all be converted to a single use zone that we're going to brand an express zone for anyone to use. These zones will be located currently adjacent to Phillips Avenue on 10th, 11th, and 12th Street. Combining these spaces will allow for shared use, and you can use them for anything that's listed on the sign. So if it's a commercial delivery vehicle in the morning that's delivering to a restaurant, they'd use them in the AM. Throughout the day, as citizens come and go downtown, if you've got to drop something off or pick something up, you'd be able to do that. And at night, we'd love to see those used primarily by some of our rideshare, Uber, Lyft drivers to stage and wait for customers leaving our downtown. So it's going to provide, like I said, an express place to get in and out of our downtown, especially on our through streets in downtown, which are typically 10th and 11th Street. We've asked vehicles to use their flashing lights while they're in these zones to make sure that people know that they are temporary in use and short-term in their intent. But you will not need to have, in the past you'd need commercial signage or a commercial vehicle or commercial plates. You won't need that anymore. They'll be open to anyone for use. So overall, we are currently converting approximately 20 spaces to these express zones in our downtown area, and we'll evaluate how efficient they are, and if we see success with these, we will look to expand them through all of our downtown area, converting many of our they'd be taxi zones or load zones into shared use zones that are express zones. Another change that's coming, with the end of the COVID pandemic that started in early 2020, we will be removing our 20-minute carryout spaces that are located in front of some of the businesses, mostly along Phillips and Main Avenue. We do know that the pandemic was ended this year by the Biden administration, and we put those in on a pretty quick turnaround to help with businesses that were dealing with the trying times and providing safe pickup spots for customers. They have run their course, and we have seen the parking in our core areas return to pre-pandemic levels, and we do believe those will be better utilized for parking for people that are going to the businesses to spend time in those businesses rather than doing carry-out. And in lieu, those customers will be able to use these express zones to park and load and unload. And so we're excited to bring these in and to make this change and to help businesses operate more efficiently. With that, we've got Joe Batcheller here from downtown Sioux Falls. He's been an active partner in helping us make this decision and making this recommendation to move forward with this, and he's worked with several of the businesses, so he's got a few words to say.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning. So why do these express zones matter? Express parking will provide convenient areas for people to pick up and drop off one another without creating traffic congestion. This will be particularly helpful on the weekends and for people using the rideshare services. The express parking is also important because it ensures that the prime parking on Phillips Avenue will be used to its fullest potential. A really interesting fact here, this comes from a planner, Robert Gibbs, who specializes in retail, and this is a few years old, so this could be even updated, but a parking space that turns over 12 to 15 times per day can generate up to $300,000 in revenue for a small business. And we've got a lot of parking spaces on Phillips Avenue, on Main Avenue, and so there's a lot of potential there. This isn't just a parking issue, this is an economic development issue. Managing what happens at the curb, whether that is express parking, regular on-street parking parklets, bike lanes, what have you, is critically important to the future of downtown, because downtown is growing in popularity. Sioux Falls is growing as a city. We're having more and more people use this urban environment. And so it's critical to be on top of how we manage what happens at the curb. This kind of collaboration and innovation is really important to help guide the success of downtown. These express zones are a great example of working together, the city, Downtown Sioux Falls Incorporated, the businesses. Great example of various stakeholders working together, thinking differently as a means of really trying to lean into the continual success of downtown so that it continues to thrive. And I want to just take a moment to thank Matt. Matt Nelson's been doing this for a long time, and it takes a long view, it takes persistence, it takes planning, and since I've been in my role, every year I've seen Matt and the parking division able to move the needle forward to ensure that the parking system that we have in downtown is responsive to the business owners' needs, the property owners' needs, the people that are visiting downtown, and the people that live downtown. So it's a partnership that DTSF greatly values, and just wanted to mention that. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions, or if you have any questions for Matt as well. This is something that, great question. So what prompted this change, we've seen one example of an issue that needed to be addressed was, on the weekends, late at night, we see some rideshare services parking on Phillips Avenue. We see traffic congestion as a result of that. And so this specifically carves out a place for those ride shares to go and pick up people. We want to be able to move people out of downtown quickly on the weekends. So that's one issue that this will help address.
Are they not using the ride share spaces in the ramp?
I think that sometimes it's a mixed bag, I would say. We do see rideshare areas being used. It depends on how they're set up. We saw one set up by Wiley's that was diagonal parking. Rideshares would pull in and then they couldn't back out. So it's more of pulling up into the parallel parking spots or parking in a travel lane, which can, that particular situation can clog up traffic. But really, it's like I said, it's an economic development issue. This is not just a night and weekend issue. This is something that will really help with parking in downtown 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
How do you plan to enforce it?
Just to follow up too about what prompts it. Obviously, we've had rideshare issues on the weekend, but if you'll go to some of our restaurants, you'll see a taxi space. You'll see a load zone for 2 spaces for commercial trucks. You might see a meter or 2 meters, and then you might even see another load zone. So the concept of being able to consolidate that to one zone that's less confusing and more accessible to more people is one of the big driving factors. Your other question was enforcement. So it technically is a time zone, so we would be able to cite in this. So at 15 minutes, if you're in excess of 15 minutes, we would have the ability to write a citation. Obviously, we try to use best judgment. If we've got a truck there that's actively loading and unloading, then we know that they're using that for the intended purposes, and we would allow that. If a rideshare vehicle was there, we would allow it to stage as long as they were actively in working or waiting for customers. And worst case would be tow. We would have the ability to tow. Typically, that is a last resort. You would probably have to leave your car there for a significant amount of time before we would ever do that, and we'd be trying to contact owners through whatever records we could get to at that point.
You said the 20 spaces are being converted. Some of them will be the carry-out spaces, some will be up in meters. Now, how many of those 20 are meters right now?
I'm going to give you an estimate because I have looked at this. We're looking at about, in that zone, we're probably going to lose 4 meters in those multiple zones because there's about 7 areas that will convert. We will pick up more than that in the ones that are on Phillips Avenue. So for a revenue or for a meter perspective, it's a wash. We'll pick up more parking on Phillips, and then we'll lose a little bit of parking on 10th and 11th, which are those through streets, which we got the traffic moves probably a little faster than we'd like to see sometimes. So ideally, it's going to a zone that is more ideally suited for maybe rideshare or for loading and unloading, because it's easy to get into and easy to get out of.
So not all the 20-minute carryout spaces will be converted to express zones. The meters will go back on some of those 20-minute carryout parking.
Yes, that's correct.
You guys would have the same amount of meters now.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, you're not going to see a huge swing. You might see it, you're probably going to see 10 more parking spots added on Phillips, roughly.
So this is more, you're adding more than something like 10 to 11 to 12, 10 to 11, primarily where you can parallel parking and get in and get out, right?
Yes, yep, absolutely.
So we're not going on, keeping rideshare off Phillips.
Yeah, that's the thought. Yeah, they would not be on Phillips Avenue. They'd be away from angled parking with the backing issues. On the weekends, I know we've heard from our police department and businesses that you get ride shares that want to stop on Phillips, they back up traffic, and just the normal congestion of how busy Phillips is, and then you throw in ride share trying to back out. It's just not real time efficient.
Are the carryout spaces that are being phased out, are those primarily on Phillips?
Most of them are on Phillips. We have a handful on Main also, but primarily on Phillips.
Fair to say there just won't be carryout spaces on Phillips anymore?
That is fair to say.
Asking for a friend, is the free motorcycle parking staying in front of the
At this time, the free motorcycle parking is staying. It's something we'll continue to evaluate. That was actually put in because motorcycles are not compliant with parking gates. And since we've installed gateless parking, it's something now you could safely park your motorcycle on pretty much all of our ramps. We have one that is still not converted, but it's safe for now. Yeah.
And then our fine and the finance director in a recent presentation to council said meter revenues have been down since the pandemic. We didn't know if they would come back. Will this help with that? Or?
It'll help a little bit. So we've seen a trend down outside of our core. Now, in our core area, we were busier. I mean, we're pretty much at close to pre-pandemic levels. Now, the revenues are down, but we've also got 30 spaces and 20-minute carryouts that we're not collecting revenue on. So we're trying to shift that to where it makes sense for paid parking and to make the revenue work a little better. But our core is very busy.
Given that the floor is very busy and it's free on weekends and after a certain point in time, this doesn't maybe address the congestion that happens with the long-term stays.
Mhm.
Is that ahead? In terms of maybe some transition?
It's being discussed. I will tell you, it's been discussed for at least a decade. I think we're closer, potentially looking at alternate options. We've heard it from downtown Sioux Falls. We've heard it from businesses that they're asking for extended enforcement hours, which would be potentially into that dinner hour downtown, and then potentially into Saturday, because Saturdays are just crazy busy on Phillips. And the struggle that you see is you'll have a resident. Now, we have so many residents or potentially an employee. They will park there Saturday morning and they will leave their car all day on Phillips Avenue. Or if they're a resident, they'll literally park there Friday night and they will not move it till Sunday. I've had business owners tell me that they've done this and they know they shouldn't, but they still do it because it's convenient. So the idea is obviously we do want to create that turnover, because Joe was talking about feed-in stores create dollars. It's just that basic economics of every time someone comes in your store and buys something, it's $40 or $50. So we want more customers for those retailers coming in and out of their businesses.
When does this all happen?
We're going to start making a transition this week. We're waiting on the signs to show up that are supposed to be here. They should have been here this morning, so they haven't shown up quite yet, but as soon as we get those, we'll start making the conversion. Sign costs $30, total sign package at currently probably $600. No, we'll pay this out of the parking fund. We'll pay for the new signs. Yeah, it's part of our budget.
Joe, you and I talked about this before, but this gets to the
So part of that, I think, comes with messaging around the parking system, which DTSF can certainly play a role in. Yes, driving down Phillips Avenue, especially on a Friday or Saturday night, probably, isn't the best route to take if you're trying to get to Falls Park. But we do see a lot of people that are very proud of their cars and they want to show them off. So Phillips Avenue is a great place to do that. But yeah, it's managing managing some of that use through some creative techniques that we might have to look at in the future.
Big sign that says, "Are you comfortable going this way?" Or something like, just a public education thing, right? But don't do it. You're not gonna get tickets,
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Just want to remind anyone that's listening or any news stories that may go out that parking is free on nights and weekends. And our off-street parking, all of our ramps and lots are open to the public. We have, in this area where we're doing this conversion, we have 4 ramps that are open to the public. That's approximately 1,700 parking spots, all within 1 block of Phillips Avenue. So there's plenty of parking. It is very busy on Phillips Avenue. It will always be that way. We have lots and lots of parking right adjacent to Phillips Avenue. So come downtown, visit us. There's lots of parking. Just find a parking ramp, walk a block or half a block right to Phillips Avenue, and you're in the core of our downtown.